Rimuru's Rage by Rimu-chi. Head to the battlefield. Rimuru's Pav. The room was heavy with silence, the kind that suffocates and strangles. I sat at the head of the table, my gaze sweeping across the dimly lit meeting room. Shadows danced against the walls, mirroring the darkness festering within me. Benimaru and Shuna stood at my sides, their expressions carefully neutral, but I could feel their unease. I didn't care. Their unease, their thoughts, their feelings, none of it mattered. Sympathy, compassion, those were luxuries I had discarded long ago. What mattered was control, order, absolute loyalty. Rigurd, I said, my voice sharp, commanding, and utterly devoid of warmth. Bring the green-haired girl, Yume, and Grusius here. Now. Rigurd bowed deeply, his movements trembling under the weight of my aura. He didn't dare meet my eyes. As you command, Lord Rimuru. The others filed out quickly, their footsteps fading into nothingness. Only Benimaru and Shuna stayed behind. Despite their loyalty, I knew they questioned my coldness, my ruthlessness, but it was irrelevant. The world didn't reward kindness. It devoured it. I leaned back in my chair, fingers tapping a deliberate rhythm against the table's surface. The stillness suited me, it reflected the void I'd embraced, the emptiness that had become my constant companion. It wasn't long before Rigurd returned, ushering Myorn, Yume, and Grusius into the room. The moment they crossed the threshold, I let my aura surge, flooding the room with a suffocating pressure that made the air thick and unbreathable. Their bodies instinctively stiffened, fear freezing them in place. I didn't need to speak, my aura alone was enough to force them to their knees. One wave of my hand, and they collapsed, their knees striking the cold floor with satisfying thuds. Stay down, I said, my voice cold and absolute. I took my time, letting the oppressive silence deepen. I wanted them to feel the weight of my presence, to drown in it. Fear was a far more effective tool than mercy. I turned my gaze to Yume, narrowing my eyes. His pitiful resistance was almost amusing. His trembling was obvious, but he still managed to lift his head, defiance flickering in his eyes like a dying flame. What is the meaning of fighting Benimaru? I asked, each word a shard of ice cutting through the air. To protect Myorn, he stammered, his voice shaking but carrying a shred of determination. I almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. Protect her. How pathetic. His misplaced ideals of chivalry had nearly cost me everything. Protect her. I said, my voice laced with disdain. And who protects Tempest? Who protects me? He had no response, his head lowering under the weight of my words. Weak. My gaze shifted to Grusius, who was trembling even more visibly. He didn't even try to meet my eyes. Please, Lord Rimuru. He begged, his voice desperate, groveling. Forgive her, she didn't mean for things to turn out this way. I leaned forward slightly, my aura pressing down harder. Forgive her. I repeated, my tone dripping with mockery. Why should I? Why should I forgive any of you? The silence that followed was deafening. I don't care if any of you live or die, I said coldly, my tone devoid of any semblance of emotion. Your lives are meaningless to me. Betray me, and you'll beg for death before I'm done. I rose from my seat and walked past them, my focus locking onto Myorn. She was calm, too calm, but her eyes betrayed her fear. Not defiance. Resignation. She expected punishment, and she would get it. I stopped in front of her, towering over her frail, trembling form. She disgusted me, yet something about her intrigued me. I wanted to know why. What's your name? I asked, my voice soft but no less threatening. Myorn, she said, her tone steady despite the trembling of her body. Without warning, I reached out and grabbed a fistful of her green hair, yanking her head back with cruel force. The sharp gasp that escaped her lips and the tears welling in her eyes stirred something dark within me. Pain was a language even the most defiant understood. What did you do? I growled, my voice low and dangerous. Myorn. Yume shouted, trying to rush to her side, but I didn't allow it. Threads of my power shot out, binding him and Grusius tightly. They collapsed, their struggles futile as the bindings tightened painfully around them. You'll stay out of this, I said without sparing them a glance. I turned my attention back to Myorn, tightening my grip on her hair. Her tears flowed freely now, her sobs barely restrained, but I felt no sympathy. Only satisfaction. I'll ask you one last time, I said, my voice as cold as ice. What did you do? She broke. They always do. I am one of Demon Lord Clayman's subordinates. She confessed, her voice cracking. I didn't have a choice, I'm nothing but his puppet. I tilted my head slightly, loosening my grip but not releasing her. How? Clayman used his powers to control me. She sobbed, her words spilling out in desperation. I didn't want to betray you. He forced me to act against Tempest, I swear. I sighed, releasing her hair and letting her collapse onto the ground. She clutched her head, trembling and crying softly. Her words might have been true, but that didn't absolve her. Trust was a commodity I no longer gave freely. I turned and walked back to my seat, sitting down as I regarded the pathetic scene before me. Understand this, I said, my voice slicing through her sobs. I have no patience for weakness, betrayal, or excuses. If I didn't need answers, you'd already be dead. Myorn flinched, her trembling growing more violent. You'll prove your loyalty to me, I continued, my tone colder than ever. Fail, and I'll show you what true despair feels like. Hume and Grucius remained silent, their bound forms slumped in defeat. Myorn could barely nod, her trembling form a pitiful sight. I leaned back, my expression blank, emotionless. Your life belongs to me now, Myorn. Don't forget it. The room remained deathly quiet. This was my domain. I held their fates in my hands, and they were nothing more than pawns on a board I controlled. Trust, mercy, compassion, those were relics of a past I had buried. All that remained was power. The silence in the room hung heavy, pressing down on me like a physical weight. My gaze swept over Hume and Grucius as the magical threads binding them dissolved. They slumped to the floor, gasping for air, their defiance flickering but already crumbling under the weight of my presence. Why are you protecting her? I asked, my voice sharp and cold, cutting through the oppressive atmosphere. Hume's defiant stare wavered, but he stood his ground. Because, I love her. Grucius clenched his fists, trembling but resolute. I love her too. I sighed, a sound heavy with disdain. These fools. Love. Kindness. Those fragile, fleeting illusions, they were shackles, holding back anyone foolish enough to believe in them. Love. I echoed, my voice as devoid of warmth as the moonlight filtering into the room. You cling to that word like it means something. It doesn't. It's nothing but a lie you tell yourself to mask your weakness. Hume grit his teeth, forcing himself to reply. It's not like that. Love is. In a blur, I summoned my sword and brought it to his neck. The cold steel glinted in the dim light, freezing his words in his throat. Don't you dare lecture me about love, I hissed, my voice dangerously low. I know what it is. I once loved someone, too. And I paused, my grip on the sword tightening. She's already gone. The words hung in the air, a bitter truth I couldn't escape. My tone hardened, my eyes narrowing. Do you think love will bring them back? The people I failed to protect. The ones I lost. Do you believe it can undo what's been done? I laughed, a cold, hollow sound that echoed through the room. Even if I bring my people back, there are some losses even I can't undo. Some holes that can never be filled. Love doesn't change that. It only reminds you of what you can't have. Hume's defiance wavered, crumbling under the weight of my words. Grucius looked down, his fists trembling, unable to meet my gaze. Great sage, I called silently, the voice in my mind responding instantly. Yes, master. Can I remove the curse Clayman placed on her? Absolutely. The curse can be neutralized, Great Sage replied with precision. Good. Do it. I'll use her as a pawn, I commanded, my resolve unshaken. Understood, Great Sage replied, and I felt the magic begin to work. I turned my gaze back to Myorn, her trembling form still kneeling before me. She looked so fragile, so pitiful. Fear and confusion were etched into every line of her face. Come here, I ordered, my voice calm yet chilling. Her legs shook as she rose, each step toward me hesitant, uncertain. When she finally stood before me, I towered over her, letting her feel the full weight of my presence. You have to die, I said, my tone devoid of emotion. Her eyes widened, but before anyone could react, my fist pierced her chest, shattering the false heart Clayman had crafted to control her. She gasped, her body convulsing as she collapsed to her knees. Myorn. Hume and Grucius screamed, rushing toward her. Their desperation was pathetic. Stop, I commanded, my voice cutting through their panic like a blade. She's not dead. They froze, confusion flickering across their faces. She's alive, I continued, my tone unyielding. I've replaced her fabricated heart. The one Clayman used to control her is gone. Myorn looked up at me, her trembling hand clutching her chest. Tears streamed down her face, and her voice was weak, broken. Thank you. I don't need your gratitude, I snapped, my gaze cold and unforgiving. You're free from Clayman, but make no mistake, you belong to me now. From this moment forward, your life is mine. Betray me, and I'll make sure you regret it. She nodded quickly, her trembling form pressing into the ground in submission. I swear my loyalty to you, Lord Rimuru. I won't betray you. Tomorrow, I said icily, you'll assist Shuna in maintaining another barrier. Be ready. Yes, Lord Rimuru, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I turned to Rigurd, standing silently in the corner, his gaze averted. Take her to rest. She'll need her strength. Rigurd bowed deeply before guiding Myorn out of the room. My gaze shifted back to Hume and Grucius, their pitiful expressions testing my patience. Stop fawning over her, I snapped, my voice like a whip. She's under my control now. Your interference isn't needed. They opened their mouths to protest, but the icy glare I leveled at them silenced any words. Leave, I ordered, my tone a finality that brooked no argument. Before I changed my mind. They bowed, their movements stiff and hurried, and left without another word. As the door closed behind them, the room was finally empty save for Benimaru and Shuna. I glanced at them, noting the unease in their expressions. You two can go as well, I said, dismissing them. They hesitated, then nodded and left. The silence that followed was deafening. Alone at last, I let the mask slip, if only for a moment. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the cold emptiness of the room. Love, kindness, I murmured, bitterness coating the words. Chains for the weak. I closed my eyes, the cold, unyielding resolve I'd embraced washing over me once more. For Tempest, for my people, I would sacrifice anything. Even the parts of me that once made me human. Next day. The city was abuzz with a tense, anticipatory energy as the key figures of Tempest gathered in the central plaza. Benimaru, Shuna, Hikuro, Gobta, Geld, Myorn, now assisting Shuna with the barrier, and even Aren's team, along with Hume and Grucius, all stood assembled. Their faces betrayed a mix of determination, unease, and a faint glimmer of hope. They awaited their lord's orders, the weight of the previous day still fresh in their minds. The air grew heavier as I stepped forward, my footsteps echoing ominously against the cobblestones. My expression was as cold and emotionless as the steel of a blade, my aura oppressive enough to keep even the boldest among them silent. I let the silence linger, ensuring their focus was entirely on me before I spoke, my voice ringing out with a chilling clarity that left no room for misinterpretation. I don't care how you deal with the soldiers or what methods you use, I began, my tone sharp and unyielding. Break them, crush their spirits, tear down their resolve. Do as you wish, so long as you achieve victory. I paused, letting the weight of my words settle over them. But hear this, and understand it well, death is forbidden. Their eyes widened slightly at the emphasis, the command cutting through the tense air like a blade. If you die, I will bring you back, I continued, my voice growing colder. But not as a mercy. No, I will make you experience something far worse than death. I'll tear away your rest, your escape, and chain you to this world until you beg for release. You will understand suffering in ways no mortal mind can comprehend. I let my gaze sweep over them, ensuring each one understood the gravity of my decree. Fail me, and I will make you regret every breath you've ever taken. Disappoint me, and you'll wish I'd simply let you die. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Benimaru and Hikuro, who had been at my side through countless battles, couldn't suppress the shiver that ran down their spines. Myorn's trembling was visible, though she kept her focus on the barrier she was preparing with Shuna. Satisfied, I turned and began to walk away, my pace deliberate and measured. Before I could leave the plaza entirely, two small figures darted from the crowd, tugging at my sleeve. I stopped, kneeling down to meet them at eye level. They were children, young, innocent, and fragile in a world that had been unkind to them. One of them, tears streaming down his face, looked up at me with pleading eyes. See, can we have our mom and dad back? The other child, clearly terrified, remained silent, clinging to his friend for support. I looked into their tearful faces and felt something stir within me. It wasn't warmth, no, that part of me had long since withered, but a flicker of something else. Responsibility, perhaps. Or the faint echo of what I once was. Yes, I said softly, my voice devoid of its usual coldness. You can have your mom and dad very soon. I promise. The first child's sob softened, but the second one, still trembling, peeked out from behind his companion. His small voice, barely above a whisper, reached my ears. Why your eyes and hair, they're scary. His words struck harder than I expected, like another piece of what I once held dear slipping further away. I paused for a moment, then reached out and gently patted their heads. The terrified child bolted, running back into the crowd, leaving his friend standing awkwardly before me. I'm sorry, the remaining child said quickly, bowing his head. I shook my head, stopping him. Never apologize if you've done nothing wrong. Neither you nor your friend are at fault here. You're good kids. Stay that way. He nodded, hesitating only briefly before throwing his small arms around me in a quick hug. Then he ran off to catch up with his friend. Straightening, I let out a small sigh and spread my bat-like wings. As I prepared to take flight, I glanced back at the group behind me. I'll be watching, I said, my voice regaining its edge. How you handle the camps, how you face your enemies, I'll see it all. Do not disappoint me. With a powerful flap of my wings, I ascended into the sky, leaving them to their tasks and their thoughts. Thitdperson POV. The group stood in silence for several moments, watching Rimuru disappear into the horizon. His words hung heavy in the air, a mix of ruthless command and faint, flickering hope. Benimaru was the first to break the silence. Lord Rimuru, he's changed. There's no denying that. But, he clenched his fists, his fiery determination unwavering. I don't believe he's lost himself entirely. Not yet. Hikuro stroked his beard thoughtfully. His demeanor may be cold, even ruthless, but his actions speak louder. He still protects the weak, still cares for the children. That kindness, it's still there, buried beneath the weight of his burdens. Gobta, usually full of energy, scratched his head awkwardly. Yeah, but, he's scary now. Like, really scary. I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of him. Shuna glanced toward the children who had approached Rimuru, a soft smile on her lips. Those children, even now, he couldn't bring himself to be cruel to them. That alone gives me hope. Myorn, still working on the barrier, hesitated before speaking. He saved me. Even after everything, he chose to spare my life. I owe him everything, but I can't help but wonder if there's still a part of him that wants to be the person he used to be. Eren crossed her arms, nodding in agreement. We've all seen what he's capable of, but deep down, I think he still wants to protect what matters. We just need to remind him of that. Yum placed a reassuring hand on Grucius's shoulder, his expression firm. Then we'll fight for him, like we always have. If there's a way to bring back the old Rimuru, we'll find it. The group exchanged determined glances, their resolve hardening. Rimuru's ruthless exterior may have grown colder, but they held on to the belief that beneath it all, the lord they once knew still remained.